Biggest lesson you learned about your team in the offseason would have been what?
I think the one thing I found out about this group of kids, we've got a really good group of kids. They're nice kids. I know this probably sounds very simple, but they follow direction. They do the things they're supposed to do, and they're a lot of fun to be around because we don't have a lot of problems with them. And so I think that's probably the best thing I've seen from this group is that they come around and I don't want to say obedient, but they're disciplined in terms of, if they behave in the locker room, they show up on time. They do all those little things. I think to me that adds up to being a good football team.
So then expectations this year are what?
I mean, our expectations are always the same. Our expectations are, win the city championship, win the region championship, get in the playoffs, and compete for a state championship. So those are our expectations. Whether we feel like we're going to have a really good team or a really bad team, I don't change those expectations. Those kids know that. We talk about it all the time. Our goal is to win trophies and championships.
What's it been like for you to be down here coaching?
It's different than Metro Atlanta. Some days I miss Metro Atlanta, and we really like living here. I like the community here, but sometimes I feel like I'm kind of out of touch a little bit with the pulse of high school football because so much of it goes on in Atlanta. But we have great kids, and I think the thing that we've been able to do here is we've been able to build something, have a lot of success, and over the 5 years we've won or been a part of 4 region championships, played in a state championship game, and semifinals, 2 quarterfinals, things that they hadn't done in 50 years here. So, as a head football coach, you think about this as kind of being mine. I mean, I followed Ed at Walton, and he had built that program. And it was great. It was a great place for me. And but what we built here is essentially mine. I can look on it and go, hey, this is something that I built, and reflect on in that manner.
And at the same time, though, because you're down here, you're kind of, and pardon the pun, you're on an island. Because of having to schedule and being as pinned in as you are, the non-region schedule can be a bit of an adventure for you.
Yeah, it's tough because there's nobody east of us until you hit Bermuda. So you can't.
Have you scheduled Nassau High?
No, I have not. Haven't gotten that far. But it's hard because you have Camden County. In Ware County and Wayne, we're fortunate enough to have 2 really good 5A programs near us. In Camden County, who's a 7A program, but there's no, a lot of the schools around us are AA, AAA teams. So, and I don't blame those guys for wanting to, saddle up and play a 6A team who's finished in the top 5 or 6 the last 5 years. I don't blame them for that. So we have to go and search some games. We have to, playing a really tough team out of South Carolina and Fort Dorchester, and played Benedictine, which is a great football program. It doesn't matter what level they play in; they do a great job. Got great talent. So we have to run down some tough games. That's one of the things that being down, isolated, that we're going to have some really tough teams on the schedule.
When you're having to call a Fort Dorch, how does that go these days? Is it basically, is it like a Reddit board or something, or is it a phone call, or? Hey, I need an opponent.
That's pretty much how it is. It's just call around and go, hey, look, I'm looking for week 1. We want to start with somebody good. I always feel like it kind of sets the tempo for the year. You want to have a really good opponent that first week. I don't like coming out of the gate and playing somebody that we know we're going to beat. So it just kind of gets everybody focused, and that preseason practice, you have a purpose. But you pick the phone up and you just call anybody and everybody. King Crib at Wayne County actually set us up with Fort Dorchester on this. They were looking for a game. They were having trouble filling that week 1 spot, and we were fortunate enough to have an opening.
When it comes to concerns these days, I know coaches have a lot of them. What's your number 1 concern as a coach? Well,
I think I think the biggest thing that we have to deal with is the perception of concussions and CTE with football. I think as a head football coach, the numbers of young kids playing, and I've seen recently those numbers are starting to tick up again, because I think there's, and I'm not disputing that concussions are bad for you, but I know I'm one of those guys. What I call is common sense science. I think a million American males have been playing football every year forever, and we don't see this large discrepancy between the number of the amount of dementia and Alzheimer's and neurological issues among kids that played youth and high school football versus the general population, or men versus women. So I think it's not fair to compare youth and high school football to the long-term effects of playing in the NFL for guys who play 5-10 years in the NFL. I think football is a relatively safe sport. I think the coaches have done a great job making the game safer. But there's nothing, you can't bubble-proof your kid. I mean, there's a chance that somebody could get injured riding a bicycle or a skateboard or playing football. But I think as coaches, we have to be more proactive, and I try to be on social media about the benefits of playing football and what I see is the legitimate risk for kids who go out and play youth football. I mean, most kids who play, 10, 11-year-old football, they can't bust a warm biscuit, most of them. So, so that's, to me, is the biggest thing, I think, is trying to get kids out for football and convince moms to let their sons go out and play football, and because I think there's a lot of benefits to the game other than just coming out in front of 10,000 people and scoring touchdowns. I think it teaches a lot of things that'll carry you through for the rest of your life.